very early on, a lot of the others decided to go home. And I don't blame them. They didn't know what they were getting into. But, you might fall. We didn't fall, but some people did. Some people got stitches. You might twist your ankle. It's going to be hard. And so you have to ask yourself, are you willing to push through that?
All right. Hello, everybody. My name is Thomas Galgani, and my guest in this video is my dad, who is generous enough to talk with me about his and my mom's recent pilgrimage in Spain for the Camino de Santiago, which, in case you don't know, is a hike about 500 miles long that starts in France and goes through Spain. It has a lot of religious significance, but it welcomes people from all walks of life, and people do it really for a myriad of different reasons of their own. This conversation is the second piece to a 3-part series I'm doing about my parents' incredible trip. Now, some context on who my dad is. Among many things, he's an attorney with his own practice here in Sacramento. He also served as an officer in the Army. It's funny. I recently heard someone say that being intelligent doesn't automatically mean wise. One of the things I like and respect about my dad is he's both. He's a human calculator with anything mathematical, selflessly puts together events and produces work in creative ways that nobody else thinks of. And simply put, he's also seen a lot and done a lot. If you happen to be listening to this on audio only, I highly recommend also watching it later because my dad and I walk around Old Sacramento. This is a fun one. And my hope is for that to be part of your experience too as you tune in. After this, stay tuned for the next video with both of my parents because my mom also has some really impressive, inspiring stories from their journey that I feel lucky to share. And you'll get to see more of the footage from their actual pilgrimage. Now, without further ado, enjoy the conversation. Let's get into it. What was it like when you first got back? Kind of walk me through what you guys were feeling, you and mom.
Well, the first was clearing customs. Not that that was a problem. We weren't smuggling anything or anything like that, but I'd never gone through it before. And the guy in front of us where we're going to show our passports, some lady didn't, the one in front of us, she didn't have her passport ready. And the guy just says, get to the back of the line.
This was coming back into the States, right?
Yeah, right. You're trying to clear right out of San Francisco.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, I don't want to deal with this guy. I don't know what I'm doing. And thankfully we didn't have to. And the other guy was really relaxed. And I don't know if I fully disclosed everything we had. Who cares? But that was my thought was we're here. We did it. It's like being back on terra firma or something, we're back in the United States. We're through customs. I've been in San Francisco a million times. So I just was happy to be home.
Yeah.
No language barriers, no things I don't know about, so that was, I think, both of ours first real thought. So it was nice.
Did you guys have any meals in the airport as soon as you got back?
As soon as we got back, yeah, we paid $25 for 3 chicken strips or something. But, so we were definitely back in America and in the airport. They were actually pretty good, but the food was good in Paris, so we weren't dying for an American meal or anything like that.
Okay. It sounds like you mentioned the language barrier. Was that the first thing that came to mind as far as being back in the States or something that you missed?
I definitely thought so. Really the only thing, because we went back to the house and everything after we eventually got back to Sacramento. So It wasn't like we were exploring anything. And because that was a thing for me. I didn't speak any Spanish really. And French it's enough to be like friendly, like to show that I was trying, but I didn't speak anything that I could understand, so to not have that pressure, to be done with that, like, okay, everybody here is going to speak English was nice.
Right. And was it a big physical recovery as well? Or by the time that you finished the Camino and then you had some time in Paris, did you feel like you already got some good recovery?
I thought there was going to be, but there wasn't. The truth is we got stronger, and I think we were both totally fine. The only thing that was important was you can't go from walking that much every day to walking not at all. But if you're in Paris, you got to walk a lot anyway. So, no, we were physically, by the end of it, I was actually way better than when I started. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty lucky. I didn't really expect it.
And a lot of times for me, whenever I've had any big trips like that or traveling, it kind of takes a minute for it to sink in, everything that you've just done. That's been my experience. Was there anything that you guys immediately, or that you had that immediately jumped out at you of like, man, I can't believe that happened, or anything that you laughed about? So.
Well, as far as we were kind of surprised that it was over and that we did it, because we both had doubts whether or not our physical stuff was going to come back to haunt us, and we weren't going to be able to make the whole trip. So to actually make it was great. And then so that's kind of what it was. But I know it sounds strange. I don't want to rip on the Spanish section that we went through. Everybody was super nice and everything, but we were kind of pretty tired of the food. So then to go to Paris, where they have this great food, I hate to say it, but we kind of focused on that, like, so, but it was pretty amazing. We had gotten very lucky. Like, you walk the Camino and you get to meet these different people, and nobody has the same schedule. So it's not like you're walking together all the time, but there will be people that are generally speaking on the same schedule as you. And it becomes a real positive thing. Like, you want to see them succeed. You want to succeed.
Yeah. And
it's vice versa. And you start sharing some stories and moments. And we had come across this couple, two couples really, one husband and wife, the other mother-daughter. And the husband and wife, we saw them at the airport one last time, and that was great. And just kind of fantastic. We had both made it. I think the husband was struggling a little bit at the end. So maybe he wasn't. I don't know, in case he sees this video, but it seemed like it. And so he was really happy that he had made it. The other was this mother-daughter group, the mom from Seattle, the daughter from San Diego. And we lost contact with them with about 15 days to go. And the last time I saw the mom, she looked kind of distraught. Things weren't going great. They'd had to make some adjustments. And the couple that we'd seen at the airport, they were worried about him too. And you're just like, what happened to those guys? So our last great moment, Camino moment, was we're getting on the flight to Paris, and there's that mother and daughter team. They're getting on the same flight. They had made it. Everything had worked out great. And it was just fantastic. It was just a way to, that kind of hit us that, we had made it, we had done it, and you're seeing it through the eyes of how excited they are to see us, that we had made it, and how excited we were to see them, because they had made it and we had started to have our doubts.
And this was in the airport?
Yeah, it was same flight.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah, it was weird. We hadn't seen them and just wondering about it, and then all of a sudden, there they were. So it was nice. And
did you talk to them at all?
Yeah, we got to speak to them, as much as you can as you're boarding a plane and getting ready. and all that stuff. And then we had our screw up where we did the wrong thing at the Paris airport, and that took us a while to figure that out. So any chance of like having a conversation with them after that, I guess we blew that. But that was okay. We had seen him, but that was the first time that it kind of hit home that we had done it. And it was, the good thing about walking is you get plenty of time to think about what you're doing.
Right.
So it's not like a moment that is so overwhelming that only when it's finished can you really take into account what you did. Here, you're walking, you're not going that fast, and you have a lot of time to think. So you get to process it, as you're doing it. So different, but
that's really interesting. And about the part about walking, I definitely want to come back to in a minute. But back to the couples that you saw in the airport towards the end, did they look different to you at all from your first impressions of them or the first time seeing them in Spain?
Well, the first time you just see them.
Right.
We didn't really talk to either of them. The young girl, the daughter, she had developed like knee problems, seemed to be temporary, like, mom had, and I came with them. So we noticed that. We noticed that they started out moving really fast, and then, she was limping for a while. But no, you just kind of start to slowly get to know them. You stop in the same cafes. They notice you, you notice them. You just see them walking. It just develops over time, I guess. So they weren't really different, except, I shouldn't say that. The mom, I thought, was kind of distraught the last time I saw her, and that may be unfair to her, but they had changed their plans, and when you change your plans, sometimes you have to start rescheduling where you're staying, and you have to make all these adjustments, and sometimes that's really difficult, and they seem to be wearing the stress of that. And of course the mom is the older person, so she's growing up and everything, and so she's doing this, and then she just looked, I don't want to say beaten, but it was close to that. So then to see how incredibly happy they were to see us and how happy we were to see them, then that would be the difference. And it was real elation. We were so happy to see them, and vice versa. I don't.
And just to confirm, I think you might have told me about them before while you guys were on this trip, but these were both American couples?
Yeah, they were.
Okay.
It was a Boston couple, one from Chicago, Connecticut, got married, moved to Boston, and then mother-daughter, the daughter had gone to Gonzaga, but then she had moved to San Diego. So yeah, Americans, but we met, people from all over. So it wasn't, but there were a lot of English speaking, a lot of Australians, a lot of British, a lot of Irish,
I still can't believe you guys ran into a couple from Faroes.
Yeah, that was day 2. And apparently they had walked from Sarria to Santiago, which you get this, they call it a Compostela. It's like a certificate that you completed the Camino. Mm-hmm. Well, to get it, the minimum that you have to do is you have to go the last 100 kilometers. Mm-hmm. And that's pretty much, it's technically like 115 kilometers, but so a lot of people start there. In fact, that's the most popular route on the entire Camino, and that's what Janine did, my sister.
It's the last, because the whole thing is roughly 500 miles.
Right, it's like 800 kilometers, but you can still get the same thing if you do the last 100.
And the 100 kilometers.
Yeah.
Okay.
So they had done that, had this great time, So we ran into them. They were coming back to do St. John, the French way, where we started, which is the long route. They were going to take that and go all the way to Sarria, so like in 2 years complete the whole 800.
Okay.
And we met them at this. There's a sign that everybody takes a picture at, and it says 790 kilometers to Santiago. It's like a highway sign.
Uh-huh.
So we took a picture of them, they took a picture of us, and we found out that who they were.
Yeah, when you saw that couple from Fair Oaks, I remember Mom was telling me about that they asked, like, yeah, so where are you guys from? 'Cause they recognize you're Americans, you say California, and they go, oh, okay, and you say Sacramento, and they're like, yeah, where in Sacramento? And then that was the first clue that they were also from here, because most people never ask for more specific than that, you know?
Yeah, well, I'm sure they did the same thing we did, which is just to tell everybody we're from Sacramento. And then they're like, where in Sacramento? And, well, technically, you know, Carmichael. And they're, oh, we're from Fair Oaks. They got really excited and stuff.
Oh, yeah, it looks like they are open.
Yeah. See, you were supposed to.
Oh, yeah. Hey, you want to get some Blueprint coffee?
Sure.
Awesome. That is one thing that we hadn't even discussed, was just the remodeling of, you guys chose to have the house remodeled while you were gone.
Yeah, we did. Well, we were trying to get, I think we're going that way, right? We were trying to get as many things done as we could, and we needed at least one bathroom remodeled. So I had a contractor, a friend of mine, Raymond Dalle, great guy. And he was assured me that he could get it done in that 45-day window that we'd be gone, which was exciting for me because the idea of having people in my house working on stuff is very stressful. So that was great. But I would say the biggest thing is we missed you guys, missed Jacob, missed the grandkids. And, you know, as far as moments where you know you're home, I'll tell you, it's like, we got off the plane in Sacramento, and it was a Terminal A, so it's not the trams, you know. You go down the big escalator, I guess, and Jane is there, and she sees us, starts going crazy, and she's running, and like I'm giving her a high five as I go down the escalator. It was really a great moment.
And this was also late, too, because your guys' flight had been delayed a little bit, right?
Yeah, the flight from Paris to San Francisco, fantastic, went pretty much without a hitch. But then all of a sudden, the flight from San Francisco to Sacramento kept getting delayed. And then, so we finally landed. It was a little late. I don't know how long they had been waiting there. We had let them know and stuff like that. But that was really an amazing moment. That's, you know, it's just very exciting, and to see them, and, you know.
Did the grandkids look older or different?
They all look basically the same. We thought Maggie, being only like a year old, we thought it'd be different. We thought maybe she wouldn't even like remember us that well. Mm-hmm. But instead she was like happy to see us too, and she had, you know, as they grow up, they start rapidly developing then. Mm-hmm. So it was really interesting. You know, she was, and has been since we've seen her subsequently, it's just been fun to kind of discover where she's at. But it was very exciting to see everybody.
I know Mom said that about Jacob, that he definitely looked a lot older when we had come over for Halloween. I think that was the first time he was back over there at your guys' house.
Well, he's still shy with me, so I don't quite, like not just for a minute or two, but yeah, I mean, he looks so big, and he's talking so much more, so that he wasn't doing that as much when we left, and now he's talking more, and I can start, getting close to understanding him. So that was great.
So, couple of things I wanted to get to too was our conversation before you guys left. During that, you talked about a big component of this was the religious experience itself, the religious reasons for doing it, even though not everybody does the Camino for a religious reason. Did it hit you as what you thought it was going to be like? Some of those videos you guys sent us were pretty impactful. I mean, did you?
I thought it was pretty incredible.
Okay.
I wouldn't call it life-changing like some people say. I would say, but it was amazing. Like, you talk about the difference between the United States and here. I'll tell you one big difference is you go into the churches in Carmichael or all around town, maybe the exception being the cathedral, and there's a crucifix, there's a couple of statues. Here you go even into the smallest church, and you're walking through it. If the church is open, you can go see it.
Right.
And so probably 4 churches a day, every day. Every single village has one.
Yeah.
They're so ornate. They're so amazing. And so you're looking at these people crafted this stuff. Mm-hmm. And it really does hit you after a while. And I told you we said the rosary every day.
Right.
Well, I think it was in Fromista. I don't know where it was on the Camino, but it was, well, I don't know, probably halfway or something.
Yeah.
But it wasn't a cathedral, but it was that size of a church, that ornate. And they had this one wall of like statues and pictures.
Uh-huh.
And the pictures were of the joyful mysteries, each one of them, each of the 5. So it was all dedicated to that. And the church was built in, I want to say 1100 or 1200 AD. So it's 800 years old. And I'm just thinking to myself, it's like this thing that we're saying, the rosary that we're saying, here they are celebrating that too. And it's been 800 years. It was pretty amazing. So it was moments like that made it very, it was spiritual. And there were nice touches, like, the red lamp was lit in most of these churches, which means there's the consecrated host, the presence of Jesus Christ, as Catholics believe, and I definitely do. And so it was pretty amazing. And so you'd go in there, pray for a little bit, and you're still uncertain whether you're going to make this trek or not. So, for instance, my knee was bothering me. Not the biggest deal in the world. It got better. But, I couldn't really kneel. You'd walk like 7 or 8 miles, and you get to this church, and you'd like to kneel, but it was difficult to bend, my leg at that point. But you just felt like, I'll just ask, and, it'll work out. And
just ask God for more strength.
Yeah. Well, it's funny is like most people were not religious on this, but I don't even know that because it wasn't discussed. We didn't discuss it with people. It was kind of our thing. And
nobody asked, like, why are you doing the Camino?
Supposedly you have to be ready to answer that question. I don't remember being asked that once.
Wow.
And maybe I was, maybe it didn't hit me. I don't know, but I don't think so. And then But, it definitely was pretty spiritual. I wouldn't call it life-changing, as some people say, because I was already religious. But it was really nice to see, our faith so beautifully presented. And, the cathedral in Burgos, for instance, it took 300 years to build. So that means the people who started to build it knew that they would never see it finished. And yet here they were building this thing. And it's, that's a lot of dedication.
Yeah.
So that was special, stuff like that. So I don't know if there's probably more to say on the religious part of it, but that's all I got for right now.
No,
So,
I mean, it does sound like the history was a big part of it too, because a lot of obviously most of the churches that we have here are much newer. And so you don't have that same kind of weight behind all of them.
it's not just much newer. The focus was different. Like, the Mass is supposed to be the sacrifice of Christ on the cross.
Yeah.
And we've kind of gotten away from that. And then you go into these churches, and they're all about the sacrifice. They're all about not just the sacrifice of Christ and whatever, but very much the sacrifice of the martyrs, who were probably fairly close in time to when those churches were built. And the way they displayed them, I guess it's called realism. I'm not an art person or anything, but so if this saint happened to be burned alive, there was a depiction, a sculpture of her being burned alive.
Wow.
Now, she, the saints would always be defiant and calm, like, we're doing this for God, it's okay. And there was a guy, he showed up, he's St. Pablo, I think. I don't totally know what he's famous for, but I assume it's for writing something, because he had the quill pen, and he was in a lot of the churches we went to. But if you look closely, his throat was slit.
Oh.
So that's how he died.
Okay.
And there were, people with arrows. The one that kind of was a little unsettling and weird was there was a saint. She had a platter, and she had her 2 eyeballs that must have been gouged out.
And then she didn't have eyes in her face.
I'd have to go back to the picture I took of it, but I can't remember, but I do remember thinking that, but that's how serious they were taking it. That it was also not just, he died for our sins, but martyrdom, dealing with persecution, dealing with sacrifice, was something that an individual person could be asked to do.
Right.
And then if you look at these churches and all the things that they're doing, and I don't want to oversell it and make it sound like I'm saying today's Catholics or today's Christians don't have the same views and stuff like that, or the same, somehow we're weaker, as people say. Because one thing that was interesting, you see the same human foibles throughout the centuries, because Pamplona, really beautiful place, they have basically 3 cathedrals. Now, since a cathedral is just where the bishop's church is in the diocese, where his seat is, they don't technically have 3 cathedrals. They have the historical one that is called the cathedral. Mm-hmm. Then they have a one that is actually the cathedral, and it's really beautiful. And then they have another beautiful church that's very big. And so I asked the lady in one of the churches, why do you have 3? Why within 1 mile of each other, less than a mile, do you have 3 gigantic churches?
Uh-huh.
And so she explained that the first cathedral was built by the people of Pamplona. The second one was built by pilgrims who decided to stay in Pamplona after doing the pilgrimage. And then the third one was another group. I don't remember, but in other words, before we talk about how like this was the age of Christendom and when everybody was dedicated to it, that may have been true, but they didn't trust each other enough. And they didn't trust each other enough that they were going to build 3 gigantic churches next to each other.
Right.
With all the costs that entails, so.
Yeah.
I found that interesting, but it was, it made all the spiritual moments nice. When we stayed in Pamplona, for instance, it was kind of a long day, and even though I wasn't worried, I was still limping a little bit, I guess, and so the receptionist, she was from Venezuela, and she wanted to do the Camino, and she had done part of it, and we're talking, and she asks if I'm a believer or whatever, and I, say that I am. And then she's like, well, then all you have to do, because I see that your knee isn't, great, you just have to pray to St. James, and then, you'll get to, do the Camino or whatever. And
it'll get better.
She didn't promise that, but it did.
Oh, she just said, you'll make it.
Yeah, just like, just focus on that. And, I did, well, Pamplona is only day 4, I see it. So it's too early, and that was actually when my knee was bothering me the most. But as we went on, it got stronger, it started to hurt less, and it really was nothing. Mm-hmm. And, we've subsequently, since we got back, we just took a 6-mile walk, and it's the kind of thing that would have bothered me a lot.
Back in Sacramento and home.
Or back on the Camino, and, it was nothing. So I can still tell it's there, but I didn't struggle with it. And, Mom had her blister thing, but she got through that. And
it is really impressive, too, that she made it in those conditions. In the movie The Way with Martin Sheen, there's a big part of the ending is that they all come to these new realizations, and what they were expecting to have happen didn't necessarily happen, but they still felt satisfied and changed a lot by it. Did you guys come to any realizations that were unexpected but still kind of changing for yourselves?
I would say we were just like, for me, just maybe reoriented. Like to focus more on what's important, less on what's trivial or not as important. Try to do that. But as far as like great epiphanies, I didn't have that. But I needed to be, I think the church is in crisis. I don't think its leadership is very good. And it was nice to see that, you go walking through all these churches that are built at different centuries, and it kind of assures you that, it'll be all right. Mm-hmm. We've been through stuff before. We'll be through stuff again, and it'll be okay. So maybe that's what I was supposed to get out of it. I don't know. But
you mentioned focusing on important things. What would you say are the important things then for you guys?
Well, the family, I guess leading into it, there's a part on the Camino. It's about 370 miles in. I should probably convert that to kilometers, but it's basically about 75% of the way forward. And it's called the Cruz de Ferro, the Iron Cross. And at that part, people place rocks that they've carried to, and they'll ask God to take whatever the burden is, whatever it is that they're feeling, and they'll ask that to just, God, take this. There's a little prayer that goes with it. And for us, we were asking for that, God protect our grandkids. And we had a big prayer for that. And Jane and Lizzie, they had painted their rocks before we left. Maggie, obviously, she can't paint. Jacob, he doesn't seem particularly into it. So, we didn't have him do it. And we had gone and stayed at this house. And the innkeeper, the woman, she had a daughter that was really coming up to us and talking to us a little, spoke only Spanish really, but she liked to sign her name to your stamp that they give you. And so we thought, well, we've got these rocks that are unpainted. Maybe she could paint these rocks. And so we explained it to the mom, what it was. And so we gave these rocks and they painted them, her brother and her, and they put their names on it. And I said, well, we'll carry those rocks too. And we'll say a prayer for them. And so that's what we did. We got there and we unloaded, I don't know, a whole bunch of rocks, really. But it was great, but it was very emotional for some people. I thought it was kind of emotional for us because to me, it was the big thing that I wanted to do. You offer your sacrifices on the pilgrimage for, whatever you're asking of God. And you can do it here, and you don't have to travel to Spain, but still, we were there. But this lady, she was, for instance, putting this rock down. We got to know her, wonderful person. But she was, I don't know what it was. I didn't ask. She didn't offer it. But whatever she was letting go of was a big deal to her. And, I just gave her a hug and she just held me for a while. And, Mom talked to her and stuff. And like I said, we got to know her as the Camino went on. But you'd hear stories like that of people who, they put this rock down, whatever it was a big deal. But we didn't, other than wanting to do that for the grandkids, we didn't have we didn't really have that kind of a burden. I'll tell you another nice, I don't know if I'd call it a spiritual moment, but
real quick
well,
on the rock moment though. We love those videos, by the way. That was the part I've mentioned before that was pretty emotional even for me to watch when I first pulled it up on my phone. You guys did that.
Yeah.
Did you write that prayer that you read for the video?
Yes and no.
Okay.
The start of the prayer is the start of the prayer for like anybody would do it.
Okay.
Where you talk about, I offered these sacrifices and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
That is, I didn't write that. And then, but the grandkids part we wrote. And we wrote a separate prayer, but similar for those three, the two kids. And, at that inn that we had met. And we sent her the videos and she was, the mom was so excited. She was very grateful and it was nice. But I even had a little moment, I thought, that was, we had chosen rain gear, just the jacket and pants. And another option you could take is a poncho. Well, I don't like ponchos because if it gets windy, they're worthless. Now, it did rain a lot, but it never combined wind and rain. So ponchos would have worked great. But Grandma had given me a poncho, or given us a poncho when we'd first told her we wanted to do it. And of course, then she'd passed away. So I'm carrying it. And, Mom's giving me kind of, laughing at me. It's like, you're carrying that poncho. And I'm like, yeah, I'm going to do it. And we're going to meet somebody who needs it. And I'm going to have this poncho to give to him. And then, and we did. Now, we did at the very, very end of the rain. So it only helped the guy for maybe a half hour of rain. And, but still, it was great to hand that off to him. And so I thought that was a neat moment. And there were tons of moments like that. And, it was great as far as that goes.
Could you kind of walk me through that, what that was like when you saw this guy? Just because I'm interested to hear I think before you said that at first he said he wanted to be like, oh, I'll probably be okay. And you said you don't understand. Or he wanted to pay. Did he want to pay you for it?
He wanted to pay me. He didn't understand like what was going on. And I told him, well, here's what actually happened. So we had known him now for a few days. And so he's just telling me that he got soaked. It had been raining that day. He needed to go into town and get a poncho. And I'm like, oh man, this is the greatest. I got the poncho for you. And I said, you got to take it. It's really important to me. And he's like, well, no, I'll pay you. And I said, just take it. And then I told my siblings about it. And then Mary Lou asked for a picture. And, I didn't have a picture of the guy because I didn't like to take away from those moments.
Right.
And stuff. But the next day, we had gotten there to where we were staying at about 2:30. They got there at like 4. And this happens sometimes. Apparently, between 2:30, when we were inside, and 4 o'clock, it started pouring. So then he was telling me, oh man, I had the poncho, worked great. Thank you. And he was like still kind of offering to, do something for me. And I'm like, yeah, I didn't tell you this yesterday, but my mom had passed away. And it was a big thing for me to give this to you. So then, then it was fine.
She would have loved that.
I think so. And so something she had given was used on the Camino. I really like that. So
I do too.
So I did take a picture of him for Mary Lou. So yeah.
Oh, so you ended up taking a picture of him?
I did, yeah.
And did he have the poncho on?
No. I think Mary Lou thought he did, but he didn't because
Oh,
it had stopped raining. Ponchos are really hot if it's, if it's not raining. They're not something you're going to just keep on.
Right. Well, I'm really looking forward to sitting down with both you and Mom and kind of go more into detail, and then also get her perspective on some of these different moments, and maybe some stuff that you guys haven't even, thought about too much. I'm really excited for that. But as we come kind of to a close, I guess with these last questions, is there anything? What would you say to somebody who's considering the El Camino,
Yeah.
sorry, not the.
Well, people call it that. It just means
They call
the
it the El
way.
Camino.
Yeah.
The Camino de Santiago.
You got to really want it. There were a lot of people who they did it because maybe they'd seen the movie, or maybe they got talked into it and they thought it was going to be some super exciting thing. Because it is, you are stopping at cafes, right? You are seeing unbelievably beautiful scenery. You're seeing all this history. It's easy to get seduced into, okay, that's what I'm doing. But the thing is, you're walking 500 miles, 15 miles a day. You got to want that. Like, it's got to be, you have to take it. And, it rained on us for like 7 days in a row. Not super hard, not monsoon type rain, but rain. I would say, okay, I'm glad you're interested in it. It can be great, but what are you going to do if your leg's bothering you? For instance, there was this lady from Florida, and I'm sure she made it, but she came with a group of like 10. And very early on, a lot of the others decided to go home. And I don't blame them. They didn't know what they were getting into. But, you might fall. We didn't fall, but some people did. Some people got stitches. You might twist your ankle. It's going to be hard. And so you have to ask yourself, are you willing to push through that? Like, we got to the point that we didn't care what was happening. So if it was raining, it was just raining. Not, oh my gosh, it's raining, I can't take this anymore. And you have to really want it. It probably would help if you walk a little bit, in your life.
In training.
Yeah. I mean, you got to do those things, but the biggest thing is you have to understand it's going to be hard. Even if your dedication to it makes it kind of easy because you wanted it so bad, which I think is a little bit of our situation. but it's still technically going to be hard. It's still 15 miles a day, you know, and it's up and down and up and down. And, you know, you're going up hills, you're going down. You have to be willing to accept that. So,
Well, I definitely want to do the Camino de Santiago one day with Audrey and Jacob, you know, once he gets a little bit older, and he'll probably be pushing us, you know, like, hurry up, guys. But yeah, really excited for you guys. That I knew you guys were going to do it. Like I said, it's not so much that I'm surprised at all, but I am impressed though, and just really excited to hear more about it and then kind of dive in deeper.
it's very humbling because on the one hand, I'm kind of impressed too. It's 500 miles, 30 days or 35 days. But we were also passed by 74-year-old ladies. And you know, like, so I can't say that, like, you know, you get taken down to earth.
Yeah.
And there was this one girl about Jane's age.
Mm-hmm.
She was walking it. She walked from St. John to Burgos, which is like 175 miles. So 40 or, you know, 35%. Apparently her ankle started bothering her, so her family was going to cut it short.
Yeah.
But all I could think of, like, sometimes if I was like dragging, I just motivate myself by imagining this little girl walking past me and just going like, Buen Camino, which you usually said to people as you passed them to make them feel good or something. But it means, you know, good Camino. And I was just like, I'm not getting passed by that little girl.
No Buen Camino.
I'm doing this. But that's what I mean. It was a good accomplishment. But if you want it, you can do it. And older people than us were passing us. Younger kids were doing some pretty impressive things. So.
But you also don't know where everybody else is in their journey. You know, it's kind of like if you're going for a run and somebody passes you, you may have been going for 10 miles and they just started their run. You never know where they are, I guess.
Yeah, unless it's like the third day in a row and they passed you like 3 straight days.
Okay.
So, no, I mean, we weren't slow, but we weren't fast. And that's okay. And I'll tell you, if you're a younger person like you're really fit, you could get dragged into a competition that we never were tempted to do. Like, so if like a group passes us, what do we care? But, you know, younger, you're thinking, man, I better step up my game or something. You know, it's hard to stay on your own personal Camino, but anyway.
Well, you know, I really appreciate you going into detail with all these things, and I have to say too, you know, you guys have inspired me, and Audrey has been inspired as well. You just seeing all the photos and the videos, hearing these stories, it's something that, knowing what it's done for me, it's something that I want our son Jacob to do, and hopefully, you know, we get to do it later, and then we can kind of share that experience with you guys as well, what that's been like. And just, I think it's interesting too, because you're kind of marrying the physical challenge of it with the spiritual aspect. And one of the things that I was thinking about as you were talking about the churches being almost more graphic in their depiction of, it's not trying to be exploitative, you know, the any violence or those events, but it's just honoring what's actually happened. And so I think kind of marrying any physical suffering with that is something that is a good reminder for me, something I want to push with to strengthen our faith, you know, and move forward. And with that, I wanted to ask you, is there anything next for you and Mom in your faith, whether that's in another location or here in the States?
Well, not a pilgrimage or something. And that's the other thing. This was a spiritual thing for us to do, but I just want to make sure everybody knows that if it was, instead of 500 miles in Spain, it was 500 miles from Sacramento to San Diego, I wouldn't have done it. Right. So part of it was going to Spain, but it's to take it the way I felt then. You know, we said the rosary every day. We were praying a lot. I'd like to not let that momentum stall and keep doing these things. And I'm really happy if Audrey's excited. She did that 5K run or whatever it was a bunch of years ago. I think you guys weren't even married yet, but she would love it. But it also, I think, would drive home this faith. It would probably strengthen your faith. And so I'd like to see that. I'd like to see, that seems to be the takeaway. And yeah, they were graphic, the artistry, it's just the style, but it's more the immediacy of it. Life wasn't great, 11 or 1200. Like people talk about, building these cathedrals. Well, they'd be doing something else. They weren't doing that. It was difficult. And it's inspirational to know that they were dealing with things that were not just, something that they admired, but it was present in their own day. Spain wasn't actually unified for a while, so there was warring factions within Spain. And it was just amazing to see people having that faith in the face of adversity. It wasn't just remembering adversity, but it was in the current. And we have to remember that too. And boy, it'd be wonderful if you guys did it. That'd be great. I think you'd get a lot out of it. And I think Audrey could absolutely do it too. Jacob, maybe he's like that little girl, but I think he should wait a few years. I thought it was too much for kids. That's,
That's understandable.
At least 13 or 14.
Okay.
Because, it does take something out of you. And do you want to push a little kid who might hurt himself? No, I don't think so.
Right. Then that might have the reverse effect on their faith and everything.
That's right, Yeah. So, anyway, does that answer your question?
Absolutely. Yeah. Super inspiring, and it just gets me excited, honestly, too. And it's cool too because with Spain, like Juan was saying too, is just, people just live differently there. That was your guys' experience with that. Everything shuts down during it's between like 1 and 3 or something.
No, it's like 2:30 to 7. It's a different culture.
Yeah.
And it's a great culture for them. I wouldn't enjoy it myself, but it's more of a relaxed communal thing. I don't know how important it is in the city, though, they shut down.
Yeah.
But in those little villages, they come out, they have their coffee or beer and wine or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And then they settle in to have dinner at like 7:30 or 8.
Mm-hmm.
It's very slow. And I don't mean that in an insulting way. They work hard and stuff like that. But it's almost like, what are they prioritizing? They're obviously in these little villages. They're not prioritizing wealth. You're not going to be wealthy in those villages. They're prioritizing their families. You see a lot more grandparents with their kids and stuff like that, which means, the families are staying together. It's a pretty beautiful thing, and it's nice. I don't think I could adjust to it, but it's nice.
Oh, it's refreshing and kind of heartwarming too, and just going back to what you said about what's important and everything, and but thinking about that is kind of what I was getting at, is like you're marrying or kind of combining that with the physical challenge of the Camino, because when people think about Spain, I've heard a lot of people just talk about the leisure aspects of it, that you have wine in these down times, but at the end of the day, you're also doing something incredibly challenging physically that goes on for weeks.
Well, I mean, you have to understand that's the Catholic tradition, is the sacrifices that you make, properly understood and properly offered up, are for something.
So that's part of the Catholic faith. Yours.
Well, it is. I mean, for instance, what do you do during Lent? You give something up. No meat on Fridays, fasting. So it is supposed to be a sacrifice. You are supposed to be suffering a little, but if you're the happy warrior about it, you're really not suffering. But it's the suffering too that, boy, you're offering it up, but it's bringing you a little bit closer. You're understanding it more. The fact that you're having a physical moment married with, say, mentally getting used to doing it, and really the walking over a long period of time where this is what you're doing. So you're not thinking about work. I didn't bring my laptop. I only had to deal with work 2 or 3 times. You're just doing that. It allows you to listen more, to experience more, but the physical part of it it's not incidental. It's like part of what's going to help you understand what you're going through. If you're tired and you walk into a church, that's way better than feeling great. You just had a pastry somewhere and now you're walking in just to see this historical thing.
I see.
No, you earn the right to walk there, and you're tired and you walk in there and you see depictions of other sufferings and stuff. You understand it better. It's something that you can build on, and that's, I guess, what I'm scared of. I don't want to let that fervor, that dedication that was rekindled, I don't want it to die out just because I'm here and stuff. So
Good coffee and everything. Absolutely. I love
right.
it. Well, thanks
Okay.
again so much for talking
no
with me
problem.
today.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.